The cultural patterns of Southern rednecks have had a lasting impact on the culture of Black Americans, particularly those in urban ghettos across the United States. The way of talking, later known as Black English, closely followed dialects from the same parts of Britain as many white Southerners, and many words and phrases used by Black Americans, such as yaller, for yellow, and bile, for boil, come from these same regions. Even the holiday of Kwanzaa, which is often associated with African culture, actually originated in Los Angeles and not in Africa. The custom of marking marriages with a broomstick, practiced by Black Americans, was a pagan custom in Europe in the past and has survived among Southern whites. Black Americans in the lower socioeconomic classes have often been described as having traits similar to those of Southern whites and their regional ancestors in Britain, including a lack of resourcefulness, disorganized family life, lax sexual morals, and tendencies towards aggression and violence. They have also been described as lacking in ambition and being more concerned with immediate enjoyment than long-term planning. The Black underclass in the U.S. has been described as having a culture of poverty, similar to the culture of poverty described among Southern whites and their regional ancestors in Britain. These cultural patterns and characteristics have had a lasting impact on Black American culture and have contributed to the social and economic challenges faced by many Black Americans. Black students in the United States have traditionally performed academically below white students with the same mental test scores. This gap in academic performance has been attributed to a variety of factors, including cultural differences and the impact of institutional racism. It is worth noting that the average IQ of Black students in the North has historically been higher than that of Black students in the South, suggesting that cultural factors may play a role in academic performance. Some cultures tend to produce lower mental test scores, regardless of race, and this may be due to cultural values and practices that do not prioritize education. In addition to differences in academic performance, there are also cultural differences between Black Americans and other groups, including white Americans and West Indian immigrants. Many businesses in Black neighborhoods in the United States are owned by people from other groups, and West Indian immigrants to the United States often have a stronger emphasis on education than native-born Black Americans. The rates of illegitimate birth and single motherhood are also higher among Black Americans than white Americans or West Indian immigrants. The rate of interracial marriage among Black Americans is also lower than the rate among white Americans or West Indian immigrants. Black Americans are also more likely to receive welfare benefits than white Americans or West Indian immigrants, and the rate of drug abuse and crime is higher among Black Americans than white Americans or West Indian immigrants. Many Black Americans have adopted the cultural patterns of Southern rednecks, which originated in Britain and were transmitted to the United States through Southern whites. These cultural patterns, which include a lack of industriousness and entrepreneurship, a willingness to use violence to defend one's honor, and a disregard for education, have had a lasting impact on Black Americans. The increasing trend of broken homes and unwed motherhood among Black Americans in the latter half of the 20th century is a complex issue with many contributing factors. One of the main reasons for this trend is the lack of economic opportunities and resources available to many Black communities, which can lead to financial instability and difficulty in maintaining stable relationships and families. Additionally, the legacy of slavery and segregation in the United States has had a lasting impact on Black communities, leading to systemic racism and discrimination that has hindered the ability of many Black Americans to achieve financial and social stability. Furthermore, the breakdown of traditional family structures and the erosion of community support systems have also contributed to the increase in broken homes and unwed motherhood among Black Americans. Over the past few centuries, Black Americans have experienced a range of cultural differences and conflicts within their own community. These differences have been shaped by a variety of factors, including historical periods, regional location, and the influence of mainstream white culture. One significant cultural difference among Black Americans is the divide between those who were born in the United States and those who immigrated from the Caribbean. Black immigrants from the Caribbean often have higher levels of education, occupational attainment, and family stability than native-born Black Americans. This divide can lead to tension within the Black community, as native-born Black Americans may view immigrants as having different cultural values and priorities. Another cultural difference among Black Americans is the divide between Northern and Southern Blacks. Southern Blacks have often had different cultural experiences and values than Northern Blacks, due in part to the legacy of slavery and segregation in the South. For example, Southern Blacks have historically had lower levels of education and economic achievement than Northern Blacks, and have been more likely to live in rural areas. These differences can lead to tension within the Black community, as Northern and Southern Blacks may have different perspectives on issues such as race relations and cultural identity. The impact of mainstream white culture on Black culture has also been a source of controversy within the Black community. Some argue that assimilation to mainstream values is necessary for Black success, while others argue that preserving a distinct Black culture is important. This debate has been especially prominent since the 1960s civil rights movement, which saw significant changes in gender roles, family structure, and cultural values within the Black community. Overall, the Black community in the United States has a rich, and despite these internal cultural differences, Black Americans have also had a shared history of oppression and discrimination, which has shaped their cultural identity and influenced their attitudes and behaviors. The legacy of slavery and segregation has had a profound impact on the economic, social, and psychological well-being of Black Americans. This shared history has also created a sense of solidarity and community among Black Americans, as well as a shared set of cultural values and practices. These include a strong emphasis on family, education, and community service, as well as a pride in Black history and culture. The cultural differences among Black Americans do not negate the fact that they have a shared history and cultural identity. These differences should be recognized and respected, but they should not be used to divide the Black community or to perpetuate negative stereotypes. Instead, they should be seen as a source of strength within the Black community.